Gentlemen, this is Rick Shoup, a forward air controller in Vietnam. I met him 2 years ago, and this weekend again in Montagnana at the fly party. The Italian friends made him a big surprise, which you can see here, with the Mekong Mauler, his bird dog, in the back. The Italian guys all around him, they were very proud to have him. This is the Mekong Mauler, which is made by Andrea Rosetto. It's a one-to-one replica of the original one. And the Italian guys here in front of my bird dog, they are really happy to have Rick here. If you're in the second fly platoon, it's the 199th, the Phantom Battalion. And here is the original Mekong Mauler, redesigned by Andrea Rosetto. And it is a very special moment also for Andrea and for Rick to see flight today. So, here's the interview with Rick Shoup, a Vietnam FAC for 13 months. Enjoy.
Okay, here this is a very special moment for me to see Rick Shoup, forward air controller in the Vietnam War, here in my bird dog. Rick, thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome.
I just want to know, how did you get the forward air controller?
I went through flight school, and when I graduated flight school, I was sent to Vietnam, originally assigned to fly P-2Vs, and when I got to Nha Trang, they decided that they didn't need me there, so they sent me down and reassigned me to at Can Tho they decided they needed me in Vien Long. And at Vien Long I was assigned as a sector pilot in Sadek sector.
Okay. How long have you been in Vietnam?
A week. 2 weeks maybe.
And a little bit more. What about the experience with the bird dog?
Well, I had completed flight school. I learned how to fly in a bird dog from the first. I went through first phase of training in Fort Stewart, Georgia. Second phase of training was in Fort Rucker, Alabama. We were trained in Beach Baron, which was twin engine, and instrument training in one phase. That was second phase of flight training. From there, we were trained in basic tactical operations, and then fourth phase of training was full tactical training with all field operations and short field operations, night flying, close support, artillery,
okay.
Adjustment, and excuse me, how to handle air control, the whole works.
You told me a very interesting thing, that you didn't really have much experience when you were sent to Vietnam. You're a fresh pilot.
Oh yeah, no one had any experience before they were sent to Vietnam. It was just, there you are.
There you are.
Deal with it. When I got to Vietnam, I had an orientation flight with my platoon leader that took me out and showed me the area that I would be flying in, and the sector commander gave me a Cambodian observer in the back seat, so that he could talk. He could speak fairly good English. He could talk to the ARVN troops and also the Americans that were controlling the ARVN troops, and I could speak to him, and he was familiar with our operational area. So he helped out a little bit, but his English wasn't that great. So I was dealing directly with the American advisors because they were all special forces. But other than that, that was the only direction I was getting. There was no flight direction at all. It was just operational control.
So did you fly as a forward air controller most of the time alone, or did you always have a second guy sitting in the back?
Occasionally I would have either a Vietnamese or a Cambodian observer, but after a while, short while, no. And crew chiefs didn't fly with me too much.
Okay.
they didn't like getting shot at.
Yeah. When I met you 2 years ago, you told me an interesting story. I asked you what was your best experience which you ever had in a bird dog, and you told me that you found I think it was an ammunition camp, and you always flew back, pulling new ammunition and firing it into the trucks, or something like this.
Sadek sector had, and this wasn't just Sadek sector, all the sectors weren't necessarily controlled by our aviation unit. I was the only pilot in Sadek sector. I had, like I said, I was the only pilot in Sadek sector. Most of the other sectors had multiple pilots, but I was the only one. And I worked directly for the sector commander, and he was a civilian. How he got to be in that position, I can't answer. But he was very well connected in the military or some civilian section of the military, I don't know. But I took all my direction directly from him, not from my company platoon leader or nobody. I got my information and direction either in the air when I took off by radio, or I got it directly from them on a landline. Occasionally I would get direction to help out with a ARVN operation that involved other people or other units, like Vinh Long sector, which was next to us, or to help out with Military Assistance Command, which also had an involvement in Vinh Long sector, which was butted up against Sadek sector. Now, Sadek sector was a big place. It went all the way from Vinh Long sector between the Mekong River and the Basak River to the south, and all the way from there to the Cambodian border. It was a big place, but there was always free fire zones that had been designated that by the sector, and if there was, they had gone through there and told the people that if you're in this area and you're doing anything suspicious, then you're allowed to be attacked.
Okay.
So, and we could call in and tell the sector commander that, okay, we've got suspicious activity down there. What is the information you have from the intelligence at the sector? You know, what have you heard? Has there been any Viet Cong or Viet Cong sympathizer activity in the area? And we would fly over these areas on a regular basis to see what has been going on and keep track of what's happening, to see if there's anything unusual going on, if there's Vietnamese or Viet Cong traffic or sympathizer traffic in certain areas. And if it turns out that there was, then we could take action after we cleared it with our sector commanders. And this happened on a more than regular basis. Quite often I would be watching a group of buildings, what we call farmholds, where they would have multiple stacks of rice chaff that had been built up, just like when you harvest wheat and the buildings would be, there'd be quite a few homesteads, buildings where people lived or did whatever they did. And we would keep an eye out over several days and see what the activity levels of people moving in and out of the area. And you knew that there wasn't any reason for this activity, and you see people moving in and out of this area at night by watching the torches if you came up to do a night flight over the top. And one day I saw one area that had a lot of sampan activities, and these were big sampans, upwards of 25, 30 feet. And if you went over in low over them, you could, with a pair of binoculars that 15 to 20 feet, low over the rivers, just above the treetops. With binoculars, you could see the Chinese markings on the ammo crates, which is a pretty good indication that they were bad guys. So we could get permission to fire, and we'd roll in on a rocket run, and at that time I was carrying 8 rockets, 4 on each, or
Wow.
2 sets of 4 on each wing. Normally I would carry 4 and a flare on each wing if I was going to set up to do a night mission. But this, during the daytime, a lot of times I would carry 8 on each wing. And that particular day, I fired on that farm hold, and it was quite exciting because we were getting secondaries all over the place. And that farm hold burned for 2 days afterwards. We were getting secondaries the next day. So there was quite an ammo stash in that farm hold.
So you didn't use the phosphor rockets?
No. When we got into country, we had the phosphor rockets, and we were marking targets, but you couldn't really see. Well, you could see a phosphor rocket, but it didn't do any damage. Plus, they were small warheads.
Yeah.
They were half the size of what you're carrying at this plane now. And they were point of impact. So if you were firing one into soft mud, they wouldn't go off because the mud wasn't hard enough that it would activate the impact fuse.
Okay.
And when they came out with the larger warheads, they were heavier, they gave a bigger bang, and the fuses they would ignite when you got close to the ground rather than having to actually impact the ground. And so the Air Force continued to use the phosphor rockets. In fact, a lot of times the Air Force pilots would come over to us and get our bigger rockets with the high explosive rather than use the phosphor ones. But and we would give them to them. But so eventually, just about everybody was using the high explosive rockets.
Okay, of course. Rick, thanks very much for telling me the story. It's a big pleasure to have you here sitting inside my plane. Yeah.
Glad to do it.
I hope to see you many times more here in Montagnana.
Oh, I'll be here for a while.
And the next place where we meet us will be Burgos in Spain for the next European Bertog meeting.
I'll be there. Expect to see you there too. Hopefully the weather's good enough for it.
Let's hope so. Bye.